Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnur, Gurur Devo Maheshvara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam, Yo Vai Vedanscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tagvang Ha Devamatma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukchurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye. Going to explain to you a little bit more about how lucky we are to have such a festival like Holi, and how fortunate we are to have bhakti, raganuga bhakti, the heart of Hinduism. The very first time I came to Radha Madhav Dham was 1998, and there was an intensive happening. I just came for the last couple of days of the intensive and stayed for a week, stayed for the Rath Yatra. And it was, although it was late September or early October, someone had brought some holy dust, some holy powder from the Holi that had been played in our ashram in India. And they were just giving a tika on the forehead. Seems like a simple thing. Now remember I was brand new to Hinduism. Up until, this was early October, until May of that same year, I didn't know the first thing about Hinduism. I had never heard Radhe name. I had heard Krishna's name, but I had no idea about who was he, what is bhakti, any of this. So I'd been to a few satsangs, and I'd started reading some of the books of Kripaluji Maharaj to understand some philosophy. I had started doing Rup Dhyan, meditating on the form of Radha Krishna as we teach here. But I was still very new. I came here to Radha Madhav Dham and just saw, some people are going and lining up, so I also lined up. And got given a tika of that holy powder from Mangar on my forehead. Then a few minutes went past. I went back to my room in one of the dorms. And all of a sudden, I had no idea what happened to me. I've never told this story before. I was lying on my bunk bed in the dorm, and tears started coming. From where, I had no idea. I had never cried for God in my life. There was a picture of Radha Krishna on the wall, and I just felt at the same time completely lonely. Like there was a feeling of loneliness, which I later recognized as longing. It wasn't just loneliness, it was longing for Radha Krishna. And I felt like I was alone in the world except for those two in the picture, except for Radha Krishna. Where did that experience come from? It's kripa, it's grace of Radha Krishna, grace of Guru. I later learned that this feeling, that's something to be sought after. That's something we practice devotion for years and years, to try to get a glimpse of that feeling in our heart, where our heart melts and we feel that there's nothing in this world for me but you. In Hinduism, as I mentioned earlier, we have the full spectrum of ways to do devotion. It actually includes and incorporates all the forms of devotion to God described in all the religions of the world. On one end of the spectrum, we have Nirakar Brahm, formless God. You can also do devotion to formless God. You can try to meditate on formless God. It's very difficult, but it's possible. It's just very abstract. God also has a formless aspect. So if you want, you can try to do devotion to formless God. Then in Hinduism, we also have much described about doing devotion to God in His almighty form, like the form of Vishnu or the form of Durga. These are forms of God, one single God, and you can see them. You can think of them in your mind. You can think of their form. Devotion to Almighty God is generally quite formal. In other words, we do devotion to God in a formal way. We do some pujan, we sing some mantras, we do arti. This is also described extensively in Hinduism. We also call it Vaidhi Bhakti. We follow a lot of do's and don'ts and worship God in a strict manner. Then there's another way of worshiping God called Raganuga Bhakti, where you simply love God. So you have God's formless aspect, you have His almighty forms, and then you have His loving forms. Loving forms meaning like Sitaram, Radha, Krishna. You can meditate, in other words, think of Radha, Krishna, remember their leelas, think of their divine personality, picture their form in front of you. Part of that, thinking about their leelas, is where Holi comes in. Holi is a leela. God plays Holi. A leela means a gracious action of God, done to grace the souls, and for themselves also to enjoy their own blissfulness. Now ask yourself, do you think it's possible to play Holi with Nirakar Brahm? Nirakar Brahm is not different than Vishnu or Durga or Sitaram or Radha Krishna or any other form. They're all one. They're all absolutely one. But can you play Holi with Nirakar Brahm? You can't even see Nirakar Brahm. Adrishtam. Ved describes formless God as being adrishtam, avyavaharyam. It means you can't interact with Him in any way. Then how will you play Holi? Achintyam. You can't even imagine or grasp or conceive anything about Nirakar Brahm. So how will you play Holi with an abstract entity? Will you play Holi with Vishnu or Durga? You would have to say, my dear Lord Vishnu, can you please put your Sudarshan Chakra down? I don't want to get injured. Durga Mata, Mataji, aap talwar rakh dijiye ek minute. Durga ji, please put your sword down 1 minute so we can play Holi. No, even though in that form you can see God, you can interact with God, meaning perceive God with all of your 5 senses. Yet, in that formless aspect, He won't play Holi. He doesn't do leelas in that almighty form. He does leelas as Sitaram and Radha Krishna. Although we should never have the idea that one form is different from another form. Vedavyasji says, Sarve purna shashvatascha dehastasya paratmana Padma Puran. All the forms of God are perfect absolute and internally equal and one and the same. Sarve purnah sarvaihi. Varah Puran. He says every form of God has all the divine qualities, all the divine powers, is whole and complete in and of themselves, but from the outside appears and acts differently according to what is being manifested outwardly and what is being hidden on the inside. So Vishnu is not other than Krishna. Krishna himself is Vishnu and Ram. Radharani and Durga, Radharani and Sita, they are not separate. They're one and the same. Even Nirakar Brahm is not other than Radha Krishna. They are one and the same. But in that abstract form, you can't say, Krishna, come and play Holi with me. When Radharani is in her form as Durga Maiya, when Shri Krishna is in his form as Vishnu or Shiva, he's in his almighty form. He won't play Holi. He doesn't do Leelas. Even as Sita Ram. If Sita Ram played Holi, I'm sure you could imagine, they would stand, let's say Sita Ram played Holi together. The same Ram is Krishna. Same Sita is Radha, but in that form, if they stood facing each other, you know that Sita ji would not look directly into Ram's eyes. She would keep her eyes down. Ram would carefully maybe apply a little bit of powder on Sita ji's face. Sita, keeping her eyes down, might put a little bit on Ram. It would be very sweet, very charming. But now transform Sita Ram into Radha Krishna. Radha sneaks up behind Krishna with a bucket full of holy color and dumps it on his head. Krishna surprises Radha in a kunj with a pichikari and soaks her. Same thing with the devotees. With Sita Ram, there would be a very formal interaction. With Radha Krishna, no pabandhi, no restrictions, no formality. How you would play Holi with your closest friends, closest relatives, with total freedom. That's how you would play Holi with Radha Krishna. So you see, we have the whole spectrum in our Hindu Dharma. How you want to worship God, it's up to you. All the forms are one. You can choose any form. You choose how to worship them. Here at Radha Madhav Dham, we specifically teach devotion to Radha Krishna in this Raga Nuga Bhakti style, where you feel very close to them, very personal. You have a very personal relationship. You feel that they are yours and you belong to them. So then, what's stopping you from playing Holi with them? What's stopping you any day of the year from playing Holi with them? So this is what Holi means to me. It perfectly epitomizes this Raganuga Bhakti style of devotion. Feeling so close to God. Just like, take an ordinary worldly example. Those of you who have never met me, I was out there on the Maharas Mandal as well. Some of you looked at me but didn't come up to put any color on me because you've never talked to me. Some of you just met me recently. You came up and very politely put a little bit on me. Some of you have known me for years. You came up behind me and rubbed a whole palm full of powder in my face. So the closer you feel, the more personal your relationship is. This is devotion to Radha Krishna. Total freedom. No formality, just the loving feelings of your heart expressed through your own devotion and deepened through your meditation. when we meditate, we chant Radha Krishna name, or we chant some Leela song, and we visualize the form of Radha Krishna in our mind. We think about Leelas. We make up our own Leelas. We close our eyes and imagine meeting Radha Krishna in a kunj and coming with a pichikari, and them also soaking us with their color. This is how we meditate. This is how we deepen our devotion to them. And just like that day when I received that tika of holy powder, that grace is just waiting to dawn in our heart. Through the Roop Dhyan, through this meditation on Radha Krishna, their form, their Leelas, what we're doing is we're gradually melting our heart. We're gradually opening it to receive the grace of Radha Krishna and start to experience that bhav, which is the true marker of devotion. So think of our heart like being a hard piece of wax. Initially, it's like a hard piece of clear wax. And the love of Radha Krishna, their grace, their bhakti, that's like holy powder, like gulal. If you try to make that gulal go in that hard piece of wax, what's going to happen? Nothing. You have to melt that wax. If you melt it so it liquefies and then you add that gulal, it enters in, it mixes in, and the two become one. This is why we do devotion. We're gradually trying to melt our heart for Radha Krishna so that their rang, that holy rang, the rang of their prem, will sama jayega. It will permeate, impregnate our very heart, and then we'll realize their absolute closeness to us. This is a little glimpse into the path of Raganuga Bhakti as taught here at Radha Madhav Dham, as explained to all of us by Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj. So now